Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Patreon Radio. I hope you don't mind, but I don't really have a topic. Instead, I think what I'm going to share with you is just what I'm working on at the moment. So, the the work in progress in my life, and maybe at some level this will be applicable to you. So, one of the things that I'm really diving deep into is just something very, very simple, but quite, what's the word? Quite thorough, okay? Quite in that I'm really beginning to explore and distill all of my numerous sufferings in life to a type of core wound. And this is relational work, right? So my core wound occurred in relation. It occurred in relation to my parents, my family of origin, and then I noticed that core wound exhibiting. It crops up in. There's echoes of that core wound in all of my relationships, be it with my original family, or romantic relationships, or in friendships. So what I'm trying to do at the moment, just my own personal work, is really get a very, very clear view on the core wound and how it has entangled itself in everything. So my core wound is neglect. Um, I grew up in a home where, well, my father was an alcoholic, and my mother was just, say, was physically present, but it was impossible to emotionally attune with her. It was very difficult to say, um, to look as a child. It's very important as a child when you look at a parent that they can kind of return your gaze with a sense. They can kind of they can offer you a sense of security and safety, right? So you look at your parent and they look back at you, and you sense the delight in their eyes, you sense the wonder in their eyes, you sense the love in their eyes, and this calms you as a child. There's a very famous experiment on YouTube, and where they have a baby interacting with the parent, and then the parent simply stops responding. I think the experiment is called the blank face experiment. The parent just like goes blank, and the child becomes hysterical because they're no longer getting attunement from the child. So this was my experience with my mother. I couldn't attune with her. Occasionally I could, but it wasn't consistent. And so this would have left me feeling terrified, and also just like hyper independent. So what I've emerged from that, this sort of the personality that developed as a result of that core wounding, is that I've become hyper independent, and often find myself in relationships and friendships where my role is, it, the I'm responsible for the emotional well-being of the other person. So my earliest sort of strategy with my mother, how to maintain the relationship with her, was, okay, I will be a form of security for her. So growing up with my mother like would have confided in me and shared things with me that a mother shouldn't share with a kid. She shared like money problems, relationship problems, complained about my dad, and so on and so forth. I knew all her fears at an age where I should have probably been scared of fantastical things like ghosts under the bed, but I was scared of, you know, my father leaving us or not having enough money in the house. So um, all of this kind of has informed the material that I'm working with now. And I like to take a very kind of logical, observational view of all the experiences I've had in life. I really look on childhood and the early part of your life as initiation. This is like the materials you're given. And then by the time you get closer to midlife, you are able to, through doing this work, through detaching from the intensity of some of the childhood emotions still present in your body, you're able to then use those materials to create beauty with the rest of your life. So, it's that old Leonard Cohen quote, the cracks are how the light gets in. So the cracks are your childhood, but then eventually we allow the light to pour through us, and we come good, you know. So yeah, my personal work is really just beginning to look at how this core wound just plays out in my daily life. How I can sometimes neglect myself. I'll give you like a perfectly good example, and a simple example. But I was traveling from Naas, um, which is in the Irish countryside, to Dublin yesterday, and there were two options to get there. One is the bus, and one is the train. There's a train that goes from Sallins, and the bus is more convenient. The bus is always more convenient, but I haven't always had nice experiences on that bus. It's not, there's drivers are a little bit erratic and it can be overly full. The train for me was something that always, on the other hand, symbolized kind of relaxation. I enjoy being on a train. Sorry to all the people who are on trains every day commuting, but as someone who doesn't go on trains very often, I love being on a train. I find like being in a train, in a carriage, with a table in front of me and a book, like I find that the height of luxury. So, but yesterday I was about to get the bus. I just thought, well, it's easier, it's more convenient, it's there, and I checked in with myself because now remembering that the core wound is neglect, and of course, I I kind of repeat that core wound to myself every day if I'm not careful. So noticing that, like, oh, I was prepared to accept the bus, which I didn't really want, versus the train, which would have felt luxurious to me. I then kind of went, okay, I'm going to take the train and I'm going to ask my mother to bring me to the train station rather than being hyper independent and walking to the bus. So that's just a small example. I think, like, in your own life, you can probably think of many, many different examples, but sometimes it's it'll show up in doing things that I don't want to do, and prioritizing people ahead of me. Even sometimes with my client work, occasionally, I have to really check in with myself. Do I honestly want to so people write to me quite often. Some people reach out to me on Instagram with sort of big questions, and occasionally, I think, well, when I first began in this work, I just responded to everybody, and I felt it was my duty to respond to everybody. Now I don't. Now it's really just a matter of my energy, and if someone writes to me, um, I might not have the time to respond to them. So this for me is just another example of how I can notice that neglect seeping into different areas of my life, and I work all the time at just going against it. And the way that I sort of use about going against it is if I pay really, really close attention to the feeling in my body. And this is also where human design comes in, because I know I'm a generator. I know that I have emotional authority. If you're listening to this and you're not sure, in the Discord, I opened up a new topic called human design, and there you can get your own chart and you can understand some of these things. So I know that in human design, if I feel frustrated, then it's not a sign for me to keep pushing through. I used to always think it was. If I felt frustrated in a relationship, if I felt frustrated in a project, if I felt frustrated in a place, I always thought, oh, this is sort of a weakness in me, a deficiency in me. I should push through. Now I know, thanks to human design, that I should feel reasonably excited all the time. I should have this sense of excitement. If there's this feeling of frustration, then I have veered off path. Uh, the frustration is not something to dismiss, it's not something to work through. The frustration for me is a clear sign that this isn't working. The year before last, I was involved in a project with a good friend of mine. We were creating courses for men and we were doing it in German. I speak German, but I'm not super comfortable in the language. I just feel I lose all of my capacity to really communicate once I'm in German because my language skills are just dumbed down massively. But this friend of mine really encouraged me to do it. He was like, "Come on, we'll do it. We'll do it. Your German's great. Don't worry about it." We got involved in this project. We invested a couple of thousand into creating this whole course, and the frustration just kicked in. And I knew, as scary as it was, I knew I just had to cancel. The frustration was so large in me. My friend would say, "Hey, when are we meeting? When are we doing the next follow-up call?" And everything in my body was just saying, "I don't want to do this call. I don't want to launch this course. I don't want to be talking in front of a group of Germans." It just wasn't aligned and the frustration grew. I think a previous version of me would have pushed through that frustration. The current version of me is like, no, I don't care about losing money. All I care about is staying true to the feeling inside my body. Cancelled the course. My friend was disappointed. I surfed the wave of guilt, came out the other side. Beautiful things sprung up in this space because beautiful, exciting things sprung up instead. Um, it was really worthwhile, and I think so. That's a way that I operate with this a lot. Just connecting to the feeling of excitement or frustration in my body, and knowing that if I feel frustration and I don't do anything about it, then I am perpetuating the neglect, the core wound of neglect inside my body. Um, so that's sort of what I've been working at the moment. I was recently just at home and I felt it. I felt it a lot being in the presence of my mother. It was quite difficult for me. I realized and also this is the very human thing about this is um like I have a huge desire for that attunement. And because I've had it inconsistently with my mother, I've had it on and off, there's still a part of me that expects it and hopes for it. So my interactions with my mother can sometimes be this cycle of excitement and then disappointment. So recognizing that um, my work around there is to just really, when I'm in her company, when I'm in the company of anybody who can't always attune to my needs, the thing that I try and do is I try and jump into observer. Jump into observer mode. You might notice this in your relationships. You will offer something through vulnerability. You'll approach someone through vulnerability. They will reject it. You will feel shut down. The and the pain will come through your body. The sadness will move through your body. This sadness will probably be perceived as an inconvenience by the other person. So if somebody cannot meet you at an emotional level, it could mean that they don't have that emotional capacity. It could mean that they are not emotionally mature enough to meet you. Um, and then by becoming sad because you're not being met, what that does is it creates a sense of irritation in that person. They don't know what's going wrong. Also, the thing with an emotionally immature person is that they have a very strong ego. Quite often, the reason that they aren't emotionally mature is the size of that ego. It's grown, and it hasn't been questioned enough, and it's grown from trauma too. I'm not trying to say people are bad, but certain behaviors are just very difficult to work with. So what I'm learning to not um, to not be constantly picking at the neglect wound in me is when I'm in the company of someone who is emotionally immature, i.e., not able to meet me at a vulnerable level, doesn't maybe have the capacity to attune with me, I just go into observation. I study the person. In this way, I detach. I detach, and I watch them. And I don't mean this to sound disrespectful, but there's a line in the Bible. Um, I've spoken about the Bible a couple of times in this podcast. I hope you don't think I'm going down the direction of Russell Brand here. It's just that it does have some good quotes in it, but it says that don't cast your pearls before swine. It's quite a dramatic quote, but I think the idea there is just like choose your vulnerability targets wisely. That's as well why we've created this Patreon group, is it's a place where you can be met. It's a place where people will attune to you. And it's a place where you won't be shut down, hopefully. Um, and so it's really what I've noticed is that sometimes when we have these wounds, what we will do is we will go out into the world to replay wounding. And we'll sometimes do this with family, we'll sometimes do this with loved ones, we'll sometimes do it with friends, where we will look for something that we know they cannot give us and experience all that pain and hurt again. So I think in order, this is what I'm working on, in order to really honor the wound of neglect inside of me, I'm learning to just be very careful about who I share my vulnerability with. Another thing, yeah, that's all I want to say on that. And another thing I wanted to just talk about, and this is something that I think I'm going to bring more into I'm going to bring it more into our Patreon, is positivity. So there's something about all the masculine energy of the summer. There's something about the supporting energies around us that I feel this is a real great opportunity for us to begin to just step out of unhelpful thought patterns. Now we know that our thoughts are just sort of environmental. Our thoughts are just these repeated patterns that visit us. They come back, and the thoughts determine our lives. Our thoughts create things, right? If you think something, it manifests in reality. If you think something long enough, it shapes your whole life. So I'm finding that it's really important, and this is something I'm working at, is I just don't allow myself to go into negative thought cycles. I just don't allow it. I keep a very short leash on my attention. And that means if I'm ever feeling resentment, if I'm feeling jealousy, I almost never feel jealousy, but if I'm feeling jealousy, if I'm feeling um, somehow like hate, if there's any sort of hate in me, if I'm getting caught up in that negativity, if I'm getting kind of dragged into feeling dark thoughts about myself, I really aggressively, or maybe aggressive isn't the right word, but really vigorously move in the direction of positivity. I don't allow myself to stay in that negativity for long. No longer than a minute, a couple of minutes, max. I pull myself into gratitude. I shake it out of my body. I don't know about you guys, but I am very physical. I do lots of exercise. I move my body, and I find that this is just a great way for me to just move energies, shift blockages. Sometimes I'll do sessions with people, and it can be a difficult session. Maybe there'll be just heavy topics, and of course, because I'm quite empathetic, um, and I open up to the other person. I there's can be a tendency for me to like capture their feelings inside my body. So what I like to do in those moments is I go out for a run, or I go for a swim, or I just jump around my house, I dance, whatever. I'm like a fool, whatever. Downward dogs, just to keep energy moving, to not let negativity seep in. And this has been really, really useful for me, to recognize that I choose positivity. Now, this, interestingly enough, I don't look on sadness as negativity. I experience waves of sadness, waves of kind of grief, but I don't feel that they are negative mind states. And it's not depression. What it is for me is it's deep feelings that have been inside my body for a long time and are now coming up to just be witnessed and to move away. Like those I have lots of sadness that's just connected to my childhood, lots of grief that could be ancestral. I have no idea, but I realize that the more positive I am, the more gratitude that I can stay in. What happens is that every so often I'll just encounter a wave of grief or a wave of sadness, and often it can be inspired by like a piece of music. I'll listen to something, or I'll see something very tender or beautiful online, and it'll just provoke in me like a wave of sadness and tears. And my partner will sometimes look at me, go, what just happened? And I'll go, no, 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 this is great, this is wonderful. Like I'm so excited that I'm crying here. I'm detoxing, and so yeah, I would really kind of just. We're gonna talk more about this in the Patreon, but I think I'm going to try and do a kind of a mental detox. Don't like how that's titled, but that's sort of the direction we're going to go in, where just looking at a way of kind of supporting each other as we choose positive mind states over a period of time. Maybe we'll do it over 30 days, where we're just recognizing, okay, I'm choosing positive mind states, and I'm seeing if that's possible. I'm going to shape my reality through my thoughts by managing my attention, by training my attention to come back to positivity. I will shape a beautiful reality in this way. So that's it, guys. I think that's all I really wanted to talk about today. I'm sorry I didn't have a specific topic in mind, but felt that these were two things that I'm kind of working with, and they feel very alive for me at the moment, and I thought I'd share them. So, and I think it could be really interesting for you, having listened to this right now, to maybe just get a pen and paper, or even just think about this now and just begin to work out, like, what is the core wound? Is it abandonment? Is it shame? What might it be? And then begin to just see how it is enmeshed in all your other relationships in some level. And how can you begin to loosen that? Okay, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Sending you loads of love and a beautiful day.